Warm greetings to all the people who are watching my YouTube Triumphant Thursday. So this is a channel where I try to bring in a lot of people who are doing social service and community service without being recognized, and they would like to keep it to themselves. Though I've been creating leaders from some NGOs, I would like these people who have done yeoman service during the phase of the last couple of months, I think more than 5 months. So we would want to highlight them also and be shown in the social media so that people would like to not at least give them any major credit because which they don't expect. Just to acknowledge them and know, feel happy. Oh my God, this is a person, my next door friend or my next door neighbor. He's a person known to me who's doing a lot of service. Why can't I also do? In that's keeping such thoughts in mind, this channel is being running. Now I have with me another distinguished gentleman called Mr. Prasanna Gandhi. Though I know very little about him, I would like him to say a few words about yourself and the work you've been doing.
So I run an organization called ARAM PORUL. It's a recent.
Can you be a little louder?
Sure, sure. So thanks for the warm introduction. So I run an organization called ARAM PORUL, which is a not-for-profit company into the space of NGO consulting. So we work with NGOs, a lot of NGOs actually.
Okay.
This is a recent. I worked with MAFA for about 14, 15 years before I started this company, and I'm a more of HR and development professional. So I ran a network of NGOs called CIOSA, which had about 250 odd NGOs in the network, and I worked with youth. Probably we ran a scholarship program when I was in MAFA for about 4,000 children. We were heading a sports academy, so quite a few things that we were doing. And currently, I run this NGO, and I also teach HR and also some humanities courses, like for example, contemporary Gandhi is a course that I teach in Triple I. So, and I also do a bit of work in a tribal village near Karumandurai. So where we work with about 2-3 schools currently, providing them teachers' salary, offering students career guidance, helping children to go to next college level, etc. Because the literacy rate is quite low there, and number of students who go to college is also very minimal. So we're helping them in that. So that's what my current work is. And my previous work as well. Yeah.
Good, very good. It's so nice to hear about people working in rural tribes because those are the people who, if given an opportunity, they'll definitely shine. Only thing is they need to have a avenue of sorts which is being given by people like you, good souls like you. And so I'm sure we have been so greedy, the whole planet. So Mother Nature thought, let me put a stop to it, and she put a complete stop for all this 5-6 months where the entire world, but for its rotation, I think everything stopped for a while. And I know you have been doing a lot of service. I would like you to say what all you have been doing this 4 months and what is the lessons you have, not lessons, what is the learnings you have got from this pandemic?
So when the first lockdown started, the first thing that we did was open a kitchen because that was the first thing that needed. So in Winner's Bakery, we started a kitchen. So Winner's Bakery is owned by Mr. Mahadev, and I work closely with him in his CSR activities. So we started a kitchen for a very to provide food for shelter homes. That's how we started. We started with about 300 food every day, but within a week's gap, there are many who joined our hands in a sense. Like for example, Kalishwari Foundation joined, and then neighboring communities joined. So we were at one point of time we were delivering 3,000 food pockets every day to most of it, 50% of it went to shelter homes, So the shelter homes that were run by the corporation, it went because they were the migrants and the homeless and the standard were put in the shelter homes for during the lockdown period. So we sent food for them. That's what the first thing that we did, and then the migrant workers, people who had provisions, but that could last for a week. But then after that, they ran out of it. So for them, we supplied food. So the food was the first thing that we did, and we continued for about 2 months, 2.5 months roughly, till about June first week is what we did it. So it was to hospitals, to migrant workers, to shelter homes, to corporation staffs, so multiple people who were sent food from here, because that was the first thing that we did. The next thing that we did was, as I said earlier, so yeah, we worked with a lot of NGOs. So we knew that quite a few NGOs who are running homes, like for example, old age or the children home, where their stock were receding and they needed a lot of support. Like for example, the donation was drying up, they can't go out. Usually they depend on everyday donation. Like for example, I have a birthday or anniversary, etc., etc. So I go to a home and then I sponsor a meal, etc. So that was drying up in the 2 months. So we kind of worked with a couple of bigger NGOs like Goonj, etc. So they supported, primary provisions like rice, dal, oil, etc., etc. So we supported these homes initially, and of course, lot of sanitation equipment, because, for example, old age home where across the world the mortality rate was very high in the old age home. So we were trying to help old age home to have extra sanitary work, sanitation, masks, etc., etc. to another NGO. So that work we did it for a. I mean, we still continue to do it actually. Wherever there is a request from homes, we do it. And we also started working with communities. Like, for example, NGOs who are working in communities, reached out to us asking them, okay, this children, I mean, the students are not studying, or the community is not getting vegetables, this, etc. So we kind of again tied up with NGOs, corporates, whom we know, and supplied provisions, vegetables, especially dry food items. So that was something that we do. Even now we continue to do it. Anybody who needs provisions, we link it up and then we try to do that. So in between, if you remember, if you we actually we also found that there are vulnerable communities like tribals and the deep down villages where the COVID has started affecting them maybe in the month of May. For 1 month they were okay. After about a month, that was getting affected. So again, we provisions was arranged for them. So in Madurai, in Nilakottai, in Kodaikanal, with the Kodaikanal, if you remember, this is the time, the April, May, June is the peak tourist time, but then it got completely affected due to the restrictions. So there were a lot of people who were depending on them, like for example, the charioteers, the horsemen, the lake guys, etc. So there was a request from the local NGO. So we arranged some food for them for about 100, people. Similarly, the tribals who depend on begging, or depend on community, right? For example, boom boom matakara, they go out, they go to every village, and then also they were affected because they can't go out. So the local NGOs reached out to us and we provided the food. So provisions, food, etc., etc., was another major chunk that we did. One from connecting the major NGOs with the local NGOs, or raising funds and then meeting their requirement. So in between, in the month of May, you probably would know, is the time when migrants were started walking. Uh, so I personally volunteered with Seve Karangal, Tilak. So with Tilak, Tilak was doing some work even earlier. So, but in the month of mid of May, like 15, 16, the number of migrants walking increased multifold. So we helped. We worked with Tilak, put up we put up a kiosk in on the roads, on the walk on the routes, and we worked with them. So in a sense, like getting them trains, getting them transportations to their locations. So we arranged transportations with the team. There were also quite a few people who were working in it. So many people were working during
I
that
know.
time.
I
So
know.
our kitchen, we supplied breads, butter, breads, buns, etc., etc., while going for them who who visited them. So who had to go back to their villages. So that was one major thing that we did from the mid of May. So for about 10 days, it was a very hectic trying to get them a shelter, visiting the shelter, finding out the gaps, trying to talk with the government authorities to fill the gap, and then when once the trains are arranged, helping them get food, while boarding, they have all the correct, all necessary, provisions, food for the journey, etc., etc., was arranged. So those things was done during the month of May. So June 1st, or the first week, is when the relaxation came in for a small businessmen and small business women were allowed to start their work, right? So many of them found it difficult to start it because they lacked the initial amount, whatever saving that they had. Probably they spent during the lockdown time, so they needed some extra money, like 5,000, 10,000 rupees, to buy materials and restart their businesses. So we started small, for about 2 lakh, 2 lakh as a seed capital money, and then we started lending it for a small micro entrepreneurs, like 5,000 to 10,000 rupees. So and for a very short time, like for example 3-month repayment period, etc. So that still we continue to do it. In fact, we just recently are giving for another 10 people a loan for them to restart their businesses. So that was something that we still continue to do it. And that was also the time that migrant workers from other states started coming to Chennai, or Tamil Nadu. The Tamilians who are in other states started coming to Chennai as well. Majority of them are farmers, basically. So, for example, in Tiruvannamalai, in Karumandurai, etc. So, as I was saying earlier, we work in Karumandurai in some schools. So, our local volunteer suggested that there are people, the farmers, the migrant workers have come back, and they have spent a large amount of money staying there itself. So they've lost their savings. So they needed money to restart, do some work in the village, in farm. So we are identifying farmers who need money. So we are probably we would be giving them loans next week. So farmers on one level, small entrepreneurs on another level, who need livelihood support, and extra to restart their businesses, is something that we are doing as a loan. We will continue to do that for another 6-7 months, because that we feel that they would require that kind of a support for them to get back to a normal life. So that's what we are doing it. In between, the schools were postponed. The reopening was not there. Some private schools were started online classes, etc. But then the students were not in touch with any kind of education for 3 months. So what we said, in our own way, what we thought was we could probably give them books, children books for them to read, simple books for them to read. So we did two campaigns. One was we actually bought books and then distributed to about 100, students who are in communities, who are especially in the shelter homes. Even now, I think till about last month, that is September, a lot of children were there in the shelter homes. Even they can't go out because the bus and transportation were not there. So we gave some books there. And then we also ran a campaign for book donations, for people to give books, free books as a donation. That just got over last week. So we are sorting out what kind of books that have come and probably distributed to the homes, shelter homes, etc. So that's in a nutshell what we have been doing, and what we did. Yeah.
This precisely, Prasanna, has been happening, which you are told in a nutshell, which itself is in detail. For people who have been at home for the last 3-4 months, have not, I mean, they have seen in TVs seeing now getting things done, but they don't see the effort that has gone underneath. What you've told me is just, I think it's tip of the iceberg. So the level of effort and see that is what has to be known to people. Just like that, people coming and just icons and also do. It's not that. I know the level of impact you all have created in this community and this during this time, which is phenomenal. I mean, people like you have been doing a lot of
Quite.
service.
No, I mean, I'll say, see, for us, our organization is more of a networking, linking, coordinating is what we have done a lot.
Correct.
But there are NGOs that worked in the, for example, we were mostly coordinating, networking, linking, and then knowledge sharing, etc. is what we have done. But then a lot of NGOs have really struggled in the field.
Correct.
The last mile connection,
Exactly.
risking their, I would say, for example, many of them risked the
Exactly.
infection and then
Correct.
went out to
Correct.
distribute food, etc. So there were a lot of quite people that I met actually, in spite of odds, because the government was not encouraging at the initial days. They didn't want NGOs to be part of it, which is understandable to an
Correct.
extent because they didn't
They didn't.
spread
Correct.
to they didn't want the spread to happen. But without the cooperation of the local community or the NGO or someone, this issue this pandemic cannot be dealt with, or I mean, it's impossible because it's going to affect it's going to spread everywhere and it's going to affect everybody. So that so that realization probably dawned on the government later, but initial days it was very difficult. So many of them, I met quite a few young boys and girls who were rescuing children, who were rescuing people around, and then putting them in the shelter homes, risking their lives, etc. So that is phenomenally. We met quite a few good people. Of
Yes.
course, this is our job in a sense. Like we always meet good people in our profession.
What
But
goes
this
around?
year, this time it was really good. Like for example, I was saying Sevai Karangal organization. See, within a matter of half a day, they were able to mobilize a lot of resources and then and push the government. Push the government to start some 4 or 5 shelters, but from nowhere, the government didn't acknowledge that such people actually existed. The government didn't know that there were people walking home. Like some of them are trying to walk till Himachal and
Exactly.
Assam, so
Exactly.
like 2,000, 2,000 kilometers, but hoping somehow they reach. So, but this group of young boys, girls, women, men were able to push the government within about 6 days. They were all in shelters. The trains were arranged and they were all boarded safely to UP, Bihar, etc., etc. So I think there were a lot of things that people were doing. It's
That,
very so.
that is what is humongous. I mean, to making people stay, give them food, then make them arrangement. I mean, make arrangement for them to start the travel, putting them in the train, is ensuring that they have food for the travel. I mean, if I keep going, I think we can keep going on and on. So to cut things short, I think the government realized, as you rightly said, the later stage that without the support of NGOs, it would not have been possible. And yes, of course, after that, they acknowledge and they've been doing it. And this pandemic, what would you like to give? I wouldn't say a sermon or what will be the takeaway for the youngsters who are or the people who are watching this video, Prasanna?
So I think personally speaking, a lot of takeaways, right? So one important thing is it is not. I mean, I would look at it at 2, 3 levels. It'll affect, but personally, in a sense, like one is the travel that we have to travel for everything to address. We have to travel, we have to meet. That I think the realization has come down. We are unnecessary spending on a lot of travels. That has come down. Another thing is we also realize that we actually don't need that many equipments. Like we don't need so many things in our
Lot of
be it food, be it anything, right? For that matter, like for example, even now the dining and the food restaurants is not open, correct? The 4 or 5 months it's not at open, but it's been a good thing in a sense. In a sense, it's a good thing for a individual level. It has been a good thing for our economy. Of course, it is back. But we realize that it is okay, it is possible for us to lead a life where we don't have to go to entertainment, where there is no entertainment, there is nothing that we have to go out. So there is level of self-contentment is possible. We can engage ourselves, etc., without spending too much, etc. So that was in some way a good thing. So another thing that I think that a good thing that has happened is something which we would not have done, is stress on a personal hygiene, a personal
Exactly, correct.
community hygiene, etc., etc. So without possibly that fear, we would not have we would not have done that. At least there was a push for that, and most importantly, for about 2 months there was no task mark. I mean,
Correct.
the many probably people who were who are used to think that I can't live without a liquor, probably realize that it is not the case. It was a forced.
Correct.
So at personal level, there are a lot of takeaways in a sense, like. But there was also adversities, like there was unnecessary fear,
Correct.
stigma,
True.
social boycott. We hear that there was social boycott. There was unnecessary fear was also there in a sense, because of course there will be fear, because we know none of us actually knew what kind of a virus is this,
Exactly.
whether I will die. But over a period of time, I think it got in a sense normalized. But today we see a very normal life. I don't think people are worried about COVID any longer. So that I'm not very sure is a good idea. We have to be
Correct.
safe.
Exactly. Yeah.
Afford to lose our guard in that sense. We have to be very careful about it. So there are a lot of good lessons, and then the lot of
Good.
lessons that
So I'm so happy that you were able to give, though the list seems big, but I think that's just probably 10% of what you all have done. But despite that, it's been I mean, I would say people have done a lot of good work, and I have to appreciate people like you and your team who have been doing good work. And I'm sure people who are seeing this will definitely appreciate the efforts of people like you, and try to do whatever is possible within their means. I think I'm so happy to. Thank you
yeah, yeah.
very much. Yeah,
The best thing is to take care of your neighbors. If
correct.
you are able to do that,
True.
neighbors, what I mean, neighboring, many people are starting their lives again. So buying from local communities, buying from local shops,
Correct.
individuals who are there. So I think that will help a lot of economy
Exactly.
running.
Correct. I think
That's important.
so. Thanks a lot, Prasanna.
Sir, thank you very much for inviting me.